Dear conversationists, dear leaders, welcome to Reykjavík, Iceland. It is so great to see so many of you this morning. And let me also tell you one thing, because before we start on the formalities, this is not a normal November weather. You should be really pleased about the weather. We've had women sort of almost having to fight their way to Harpa in some years, but now it's like a warm summer day for us. So thanks to the weather. This is, of course, also here in Reykjavík, a very special time in the year for us. This is when we lit up the Harpa, the house you're in now, in the forum colors. So the people in Reykjavík know that something big is happening, and they know that there are women leaders and some men leaders flocking to join us here today for the conversation. In this year, we feel that the feeling of togetherness is particularly powerful and important. Across Iceland and across the world, women and allies continue to demonstrate that progress happens when we work together, when we share power, and when we lead collectively. And this is exactly what we try and do in Reykjavík, Iceland every year, and to make sure that you go to your individual countries, feel energized and willing to make some changes and lead some changes. As usually, dear friends, we have approximately 500 leaders joining us this year in Reykjavík from 70 countries, so we're really happy to have so many with us. Let me also tell you a little bit about the atmosphere in Reykjavík. Those of you that don't know, we will be telling you more about that in our program, but it is now 50 years since we had our Kvennafrí, our Women's Day off, which was a total landmark in the history of Icelandic gender equality. And just a few weeks ago, so many of the Icelandic women that you will meet here today, and thousands of other women, went outside and once again protest and raised their voice around the government and our system, making sure that women and girls have the same right. And that is the spirit of this year's forum, and that is the sort of request of this year's forum, is that we power together for change. And that is what the Icelandic women did 50 years ago, and that is what we hope we will be doing this year in Reykjavík. Adrian.
I love that. Power together for change. Can we say that together? Power together for change. We're not just here to celebrate everything that has happened in the past, but we're also here to just really celebrate each other for what's happening right now. You're here to show up, and we're here to show out, to be able to collaborate and create opportunities for us to gather information and take it back to our various communities so that we can continue to grow and support all the hard work that we've been doing. We want to be able to make sure that we're having great dialogue and great moments of collaboration. Let's say those words. Collaboration. Collaboration. Are you guys like collaboration? We need to, when I say collaboration, you need to be like collaboration. 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 I like that. And dialogue. Dialogue. So we're going to lead with some great energy to collaborate in dialogue. And this is important because together we're going to explore how to challenge women and girls worldwide, how to be able to create momentum for us, not only to turn ideas into tangible results. So in other words, we're not just going to talk about it here, we're going to be about it. So over the past years, this community, you think we get here and we start talking about all the powerful things, but it doesn't stop here. We leave and go all over the world to have great conversations about how to continue this work. So we may show up in Davos during the World Economic Forum. We'll show up in New York City for UNGA. And not only that, we have these virtual communities that we have time to collaborate and talk about all the important work that is necessary. So over the past years, we just continue to keep the momentum going just to ensure that the women that we work with are able to attain and retain power. Can we say that? Attain and retain power. Do you really believe that, though? So I need to hear it like you mean it. So say attain, and retain power. I love that. I feel like I'm on a power trip myself right now, right? So this Reykjavik Global Forum stands firmly on 3 pillars: knowledge, conversation, and change. These pillars guide everything we do. We create and share knowledge that drives the change. And we convene leaders from every sector, from every region of the world. What did we say? 70 countries?
70 countries.
7 countries.
Yeah.
7?
70?
70
Of
countries.
course.
70 countries. So it's a lot of diversity in this room. So we have a lot of action that we can make all over the world. And we want to just make sure that we are translating our conversations into action through concrete commitments and measurable progress. This year, we continue the work of the Reykjavik action items that are based on our 4 E's. Number 1, equal pay. Say equal pay. Equal pay. I need more energy. I just need it. We're going to try again. Number 1, equal pay. Equal pay. I love it. Equal representation. Equal representation. I hear her voice. Thank you so much. Equal parental leave. And the final E, ending gender-based violence. Ending gender-based violence.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm really happy that you took on the role of making sort of sure that the community here would lift themselves up and shout a little bit. Thank you so much for that. On the note of, as Adrian was mentioning, we place a high importance and all of our importance around making sure that we move into actions. There is one thing to talk about the success we need. There is one thing to talk about the situation that we would like to change. But I don't know about you, but I've been in this, one could call it business, of feminism for a fairly long time. And I'm really tired of explaining why this is needed. I mean, we've had it with explaining the why. So what we try and do here is to talk about the how. How can we do it, and how can we make sure that we move into action and that we see real progress? So Adrian, that is a part of our advisory board, global advisory board, knows that what we have been doing this year, and that is something we hope to be able to share with our community and explaining the community. We are a community of 12,500 women. Across the country, across the globe, but of course we cannot cater for more than this amount of women or number of women here in Harpa. But we are in the preparation of creating what we call the playbook for progress. So that is sort of like almost like a manual for individuals, organizations, businesses, and countries to learn from Iceland and see how they can actually increase gender equality in their country and make sure that it moves into the right direction. So not just doing it like Iceland has done successfully, but also learning from something that might not have worked as well. So we are really happy to be able to share that with you somewhere around the new year. And that is sort of what we are so happy about. This was seen in the beginning when we started this, and we started this with Katrín Jakobsdóttir, our former Prime Minister. The sort of issue was to gather women in Reykjavík, Iceland, to talk about these issues, and we wanted it to be across sectors. Not just politicians or not just business, not just academia, but a mix of women that could actually change the world. And in these 8 years, because this is our 8th time, we have certainly managed to make sure that Iceland is the center spot where all of you decide to come here and talk about these issues. And we also feel that there is a real need for it. And we think that you can learn, and we can all learn from talking together here. I'm not going to say much more. I will introduce our great co-hosts, because an event like this can never be done by a single person or a group of team or what have you. It needs sort of a big family to make sure that it works. And we are lucky enough to have a big family, not just an international one. We have great international partners and people that come here regularly. But before we talk about that further today, we have on the agenda for you 30 conversations on stage. So we hope that you will enjoy that. But before that, I would like us to move into our first conversations. That is our traditional panel. It's called in Icelandic Velkomin til Íslands. This is easy. This is really easy. But it means, of course, welcome to Iceland. And that is always our highlight in the beginning, but because this is where we get to speak to our leaders in the government of Iceland and in the parliament of Iceland. But before I call them on stage, I want to make sure to thank them for the trust that they have in the event, the support that we have felt in many, many years, and the collaboration with the government and parliament here in Iceland has been absolutely invaluable. I also want to name in the beginning, because some of you might find that strange, but I'm not being impolite when I introduce people in Iceland with their first name. We talk to each other in first names. So I'm not being impolite to my friends from the government or parliament. They would find it strange if I would start by Her Excellency blah, 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 blah. So we do it informally, and we would really like and appreciate if you would do the same throughout these 2 days to call your colleagues and your friends here first names. So without further ado, we have here the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Iceland, Þorgerður Katrín. And then, with the same difficult first letter in her name, we have the Speaker of the Althingi, the Parliament of Iceland, Þórunn. Please. Well, how lovely it is to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All good?
All good.
All good?
All good.
Okay.
Maybe I will rip off my earring.
Yeah, do that. So nice to have you, and thanks for joining this morning. I mean, as many of you know, our friends here in the room, and this may sound as a bit of a brag, and of course, sort of part of it is, but Iceland has, for 16 years in a row, been ranked the country that does best when it comes to gender equality. We have closed the gender gap by 90%, we are told, by the World Economic Forum. And that is something that, of course, was founded in the women I talked about earlier, the one that did the day off here 50 years ago, and then many women have come sort of later. And, of course, we have men that have been involved in that as well. And Iceland has also, in other measurements, like our measurement, the Reykjavík Index, been the leader when it comes to the perception of how our people see men and women and how they perceive them as leaders. So in that sense, we are equal and we pride ourselves in it. And what is interesting also with Iceland is the fact that we see it really as of a national importance. People in Iceland generally find this to be important and think that this is something that the country should be proud about. And the reason why I think the Icelandic nation has gathered around the gender equality issues in the way we have is that there is a pretty good party consensus around gender equality. We might argue about exactly the ways, but we agree on that where we want to be. So most of us are in the same place when it comes to that. And what makes this also a really important sort of time in place here in Iceland is for the first time in the history of Iceland, we have a government in place that was formed by 3 women, 3 party leaders from different political parties that hand in hand decided to form a government, and we now have, both in government and parliament, equal representation of genders. But of course, having said that, I mean, we are not a paradise in any shape or form when it comes to gender equality. Loads of things still needs to be done. But I wanted to start with you, Þórunn. I mean, every time we gather here in Iceland, we talk about the Icelandic case, if you like, how we have done it for such a long time. And I was wondering, because I talked about the government, and it's not only that the government is formed by 3 women, all of the women, or the women within the majority in parliament are visual and seen. I mean, they have positions of power. And I was wondering, how much do you think, I mean, leaders like you, leaders like those that came before you, how much are they to be thanked for us moving further?
Well, I think that we would not be here, the three of us, had it not been for decades of women's rights struggle in this country. Because we are celebrating 50 years from the first women's strike or day off, it has to be pointed out that it has been 50 years. Mm-hmm. And none of this happened because the women in the front were given the red carpet. Not at all. Yeah. They had to fight every inch of the way. But I think it's very important what you pointed out, Hanna, Birna, is that what we have managed to do in Iceland is to have political consensus on sort of the foundations we're building on. And that has to do with the idea of equal rights, the idea of equal pay, even though we still have too far to go in that. And also just the idea of having equal participation in society. And that then results in maternity, paternity leave with cross-the-board support. Mm-hmm. It sort of creates basically the understanding that the three of us are sitting here is not something extraordinary, that's just what life is about, but we are here because the ground was laid before us, mm-hmm. and because I'm going to say this, because we persevered, we did not give up, and the three of us could tell different stories about that. Mm-hmm. And I think that because in a way, I mean, we're here as individuals, and that matters, but we would not be here if not for the society that created these conditions. And I think that you look at the basics, you look at getting an education, having maternity, paternity leave, having play school for all children, which is affordable, and then I could continue. None of this would be done without mm-hmm. that. And that did not come just like that. Mm-hmm. It has been fought for, it has been ridiculed, it has been fought against. And I think that we should just keep that in mind, especially now in 2025, when we're sort of going like, look where we're at now, 50 years later. Because we are all, I think, in most countries, and as well here in Iceland, experiencing a backlash. Yep. And it is very, very dangerous.
Exactly. In that sort of, a little bit around that, Þórunn, because people find it interesting from other parts of the world that this is actually done in consensus. Mm-hmm. Many of the things. I mean, we've seen Parliament raise their hands around super progressive legislation around gender equality from all parties. Is there some sort of secret group within parliamentarians of women that yes. that makes sure that they work together across party lines? Is there some sort of magic in there?
I think there is, and I think that in Parliament, the women stick together when they have to, and they always have. But I also think it is a testament to the health of our democracy, because within all the political parties, you have women who have been working on the same cause, and they have then, I mean, the success of 1975, mm-hmm. The key to it was that everyone was included. Exactly. Everyone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You did not have to be of the right opinion or a declared feminist, which almost no one was those days. Yeah. But it happened like that. So it's inclusion, it's solidarity across party lines. And I think it also has to do with the fact that we have managed in our legislation, MPs, political parties in Iceland, have managed from time to time to be ahead of public opinion when it comes to the rights of gay people, what we call sexual identity, I think is the right term, and all sorts of things that we have sort of said, okay, we'll do it like that. So we have led by legislation, which is not often the case.
So important. Þorgerður, I mean, I don't mean to put you on a spot or anything, but you are one of the longest sitting parliamentarians in Iceland.
But not the oldest one.
No, not the oldest one. It's just that you have been, I mean, you have a long experience, but let's make sure she's not the oldest one. But I'm thinking, I mean, you've lived this times where we have been, for example, in the 16 years where we have been seeing real progress. And you've been in government, you've been out of government. How has this situation, the conversation, and what Þórunn is explaining, how has that affected your personal leadership journey?
It's been quite a journey. You know, I entered parliament like you in 1999. I would say, and I absolutely agree with everything that Þórunn said, but I think, you know, I'm so grateful for all the women that denied or didn't accept the inequality in life. And, you know, the politics in Iceland, it has been transformed through the decades by real activism, you know, and the biggest one, of course, the women's strike back in 1975. And then the broader women's collaboration that paved the way for all of us. But actually, me and Þórunn, we come actually from a different background. You are from the left side of the politics. I'm coming from the right wing, as you. And I would say when I started, and you actually as well, Hanna, Birna, when we started, the environment in my old party was a little bit different from the Social Democrats. You know, there were women, but we were not so many. And for a short time, I would say I put aside my femininity, and started to be and act a little bit masculine, more masculine than I was earlier. But until we gained power and we became, we were more, you know, more active and more on the forefront, then we became ourselves. And by that, I would say we embraced more freedom, more respect inside the party. And for me, it was enormous important that having a group of women with you and Ásdís, a lot of Icelandic women that you don't know, but very important people for me. But also I had these role models in other parties, like Ingibjörg Sólrún, like a lot of other persons. But I would say now when I entered politics again and I'm now in government, I see role models in the government itself. You know, with the chairman of the People's Party, with the chairman of the Social Democrats, though they are much younger. No, not Inga, she's not younger than me, but Kristjánsdóttir. And I am looking at Katrín which was for many years, maybe too many, Prime Minister.
Oh, there you go.
She was doing an extremely well done job as a head of government. So role models all over the place is so important, but also I would say the background. Though I'm rather on the right side of politics, I'm raised up by a feminist. Both my parents, they were feminists. And I often tell this story when my father, he had two daughters, me and my sister, he was cleaning the house, 1975 or 1976, and a very good friend of ours, he visited my father. He was an actor, so his work was a lot done during the evening. So he was back home and he was vacuuming and cleaning the house. And this friend comes home and he says to my father, Gunnar, I would never do this. That is my wife's work. And his friend, our friend, he had two sons. And my father stopped cleaning and put a hand on our friend's shoulder and said, do you think I'm raising my daughters to be handmaids for your sons? So that was the message I got through my whole childhood. And I think that is also important. That gives you also courage to upfront, you know, all kinds of stupidity when it comes to gender equality.
Exactly, so important. And I think, I mean, this is what I was saying earlier. I mean, there are really many men, even sort of older men, that take pride in what we have done and take pride in the gender equality, and also to explain to the audiences that we are talking about consensus in politics, and it might seem really hard because some of you come from countries where there is far right and far left, so the spectrum is really wide. The spectrum, of course, is totally different in Iceland. I mean, we are all more or less walking around the center, if you like, so there is not a humongous gap between us, especially when it comes to human rights and those issues.
May I just shortly interrupt you?
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Because Þórunn said so rightly that, and you as well, that there is consensus in Icelandic politics that, in the broader sense, we have to underline gender equality. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I must also admit, and sadly I do it in front of many visitors from abroad, that I think we are facing now again challenges.
Totally.
When it comes to political consensus on gender equality and human rights as well. And I think that is one of our biggest challenges now, both here in Iceland and internationally.
Yeah.
So there we have to have the same courage like the women back then 50 years ago to stand up and talk on behalf of
exactly.
these important groups.
Yeah. And we are even seeing this, as Þorgerður mentions, within politics, and we haven't seen that for a long time. But so the glimpse of what everybody else is seeing regarding the backlash is, of course, also the case here. And that is what I wanted to ask you next, Þórunn. I mean, you have been on the Icelandic scene of feminism for a long, long time. I mean, you've done that both within government, you've done that in the labor union, you've done that in several other places where you have used your voice and power to make sure that we move towards changes. The backlash, the discussion around, is it there or is it not there? I mean, how do you see it if you look at it from the perspective of history?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely here. And it is, I mean, everything that happens in other countries happens in Iceland. There's usually a time lag, and it comes. Mm-hmm. Now there's not much of a time lag because of social media. So it's basically here every day. We watch the same news. People watch the same influencers, if you will. Get the same information, or I should say, get the information that their algorithm provides or within their echo chambers. And we see the same effects on young men in Iceland, of course young women as well, but when I'm thinking about it, I almost see them as operating in two spheres, as if they're not really operating on the same stage, and I think that's very dangerous because we did all this so we could be together on this stage, men and women. And I think that we have, as Þorgerður was mentioning, we have started to hear voices in Icelandic politics who and I'm going to say this here, and I hope it goes on the news, that are opportunistic. Mm-hmm. They're using these voices that come from elsewhere. They are using them to erode the consensus that we have had here for decades on equality and human rights, and they are diminishing what we have done because they are working against it. And I think you could look at it and say like, oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, we're okay. There's so many people here that are okay and talk differently. But it sneaks in, back at you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that we really have to take seriously. And I do think that it is, for people like Þorgerður and I, we both started out in Parliament, as she said, in 1999, very young. And and then we took a little break. Her break was shorter than mine, but I came back, and we have a responsibility to address this. We have a responsibility to address this. The men in politics have a responsibility to address this, and I really, implore them to do that because this cannot be fought by only us. Mm-hmm. They really need to step up and step in because we are here. I look around me. We are women of privilege. Let's just face it. That means that we have more responsibility to fight against what's happening than those who are of less economic means, do not have the power that we have, And so we really need to get together on this, and we also need the men to be with us in this. And I'm kind of like, I'm a bit tired. I'm a bit tired of asking them to join. I just want them to be there. You know, it's like we have laid the ground. We have fought this fight for the last decade here in this country. Decade, I'm talking about a century in this country, with great success for everyone, men and children included. And we should not have to ask them to join the fight. They should be here with us.
Absolutely. And I think, and we feel, for example, within the Reykjavík Global Forum, as Þórunn is saying, that this is the next leap and needs to be the next leap. If we are to make sure that this goes the way I think most people want, we need them more involved. Because otherwise there are some views out there that will not help this necessary fight. So I think that is crucial. Þorgerður, resting on what Þórunn was saying, and let's also just be frank here. I mean, that's what we usually do, and that is how we push things. There are people in Iceland saying, enough is enough. I mean, honestly, I'm going to count all the women leaders that are, I mean, the two of you, the Prime Minister, the President, the police officer, what have you. These are all women. And this is sort of pointed out as us having gone too far. Although we've never ever seen this in Iceland before, we've seen a place and reality where all of us grew up and saw one or two women around on the stage, if there were some of them. But when it happens once in our history, that the women are so many, there are voices saying, well, isn't this enough? What more do you want, really? How do you feel this, being part of this?
Yes, absolutely, I feel it. And in almost every speech I make abroad, be it in UNGA, the EU National General Assembly, or at the Human Rights Council, or at NATO, mentioning women's rights, gender equality, women, peace and security, everything is combined together. You know, people come to me and say, good speech, great speech, but don't talk so much about gender equality. Don't always talk about that, you know, and the rights of minority, LGBTQI, you know. There are certain issues that are not so well accepted, like just a couple of years ago. So I think, from my point of view, progress in this, or at least keeping this progress, requires also action on our behalf, not least. But I also think, being a Minister for Foreign Affairs, and what is so, I would say, beautiful about Icelandic foreign policy, and not least like Katrín Jakobsdóttir did so excellently, and now Kristjánsdóttir as a Prime Minister, that we are talking about gender equality and with no shyness, and also about other minority rights, be it like I mentioned, LGBTQI people or disabled people, you know, we have to talk about them and push progress further. Otherwise, nothing will happen. But on the broader context, I would say, and I'm still focusing on the politics here back home, I underline there is a huge challenge ahead of us, you know, because we have imported, sadly, politics mainly from the US, you know, people that are underlining the same policy, like, for example, Jerry Kirk made, you know, and I think that is dangerous. That is not Icelandic politics, it's a foreign politics that we do not welcome so much here in Iceland. So I would say now for all the political parties, both men and women, like you said as well, Hanna Birna, we have to be aware and talk about we cannot be silenced. And now when I'm also facing or trying to make some tariff agreements with the US or other sorts of agreements, we cannot allow us to obey when they demand you have to stop talking about day, you have to push all the day agreements out of everything, and don't talk about climate change. Climate change is a hoax. You have to, of course, to find the balance when you are in collaboration with other countries and you are making agreements with other countries. But you also have to be aware that you are not losing your dignity and your values. And
Exactly.
I think that is a challenge now for us when it comes to foreign relations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, for example, with this group here, I mean, we've heard again and again, and of course that is the moral stand on many things. When they go low, we go high. But in this situation in the world, we cannot stay silent.
No, and we cannot be complacent as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we need to speak up and make sure that the voices around this are heard. But sort of, I'm going to close, but I was just, because you mentioned it so often, there is this conversation about gender equality being, yes, something that is on the sideline important. I mean, for Iceland, this has also been a huge economic issue. I mean, we would never have had the growth, the sustainability, the welfare we have if we didn't have gender equality. So I'm thinking about, I mean, you are presenting Iceland abroad, and somebody would say that this is one of our soft powers. I mean, we aren't being called to the main tables, sadly, I cannot understand, but we are not called to all of the main tables because, I mean, we're small. But we are called to that table because of our success in gender equality,
Yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And people understand when we say being so prosperous as we are as a nation, it's linked directly with gender equality. That's why we are so prosperous and peaceful as well. And soft power, yes, I think it's a soft power. It's a beautiful kind of soft power. But it's also our strength, because where gender equality is on the front line, there is a more peaceful nation, more secure nation, So slowly others are getting the grip and understanding the fact that gender equality is a main factor for being a prosperous nation.
Exactly. Closing with you, Þórunn. Is there, I mean, we are talking here, let's make sure we're not talking about a perfect place. We're just trying to sort of underline and highlight what has gone well. I mean, is there more that Parliament can do? I mean, your people of 50-50 men and women, it's a fairly progressive Parliament. Do you think there is something that we still haven't done or something that we still need to focus on?
Yes, there's lots of things that we need to work on, and I think that we are not allowed to rest on our laurels, and I think that we have to, more than in many years now, it's not just gender equality that's being threatened, it's the basics of democracy. And as Þorgerður was saying, you cannot have democracy, progress, without gender equality. And you see the countries that actually oppress their women, they're lagging behind. They're not going to go anywhere. So they need their women, and that's our message. And I know that's the message that Þorgerður is out there telling everyone. We have 70 wars in the world today. Not many women at the table negotiating peace. Which basically is a recipe for continued disaster. That is something that we need to look at more here, both in our foreign policy, as we do, but also just domestically. How can we, as politicians, talk for peace, talk for progress, knowing that gender equality is the basis for everything that we have to do for a peaceful society, for progress, and for just... we can always put it in economic terms. We know that. I mean, if we did not have the labor participation of Icelandic women the way it is and has been for decades, this would not be such a prosperous country. Exactly. And that message is something that we need to, of course, we sing our praises and we're pretty good at it, but we also just need to tell people how we did it. I mean, it took time.
Yeah, exactly.
It took legislation, it took policy, it took foresight, it took brave politicians, women and men, to do what we had to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we need to continue. Yeah.
the message is quite clear. I would say that gender equality is not just a moral imperative, it's also a strategic one,
Yes,
you know, and
absolutely.
it has to be that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll leave it on these positive notes. Thanks so much, Þórunn, and thanks so much, Þorgerður, Katrín. Thanks again from all of us to the Government of Iceland and Parliament of Iceland for being part of this and for allowing all of us to come together to discuss these important issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you.